Leave your hope at the door, and what you are about to see is not a tragedy. It is an inevitability, because I am only here to show you how it was built. So observe this specimen, Peter Popoff, who is a creature of peculiar celestial habitat. And today's focus is greed, fueled by the intoxicating frequency of spiritual exploitation. In the glass canyons of Manhattan, we saw predators hunt for equity and market share. But here, in the humid, stagnant air of the revival tent, we find a different kind of scavenger altogether. One that realized long ago that the most renewable resource on this planet is not solar power nor wind. It is the raw, unrefined desperation of the human spirit. While the herd seeks a miracle, Popoff seeks their life savings, and he does not operate with complex trading algorithms, but with a hidden earbud and a calculated radio frequency. So observe his plumage, which is a suit of expensive shimmering silk cut specifically to project the borrowed authority of a divine messenger. To the untrained eye, he is a healer, a beacon of light, but to the naturalist, he is a classic parasitic organism, meticulously injecting his spores of deception into the very heart of the vulnerable. He understood the fundamental law of this particular sweet lie, which is that a man who cannot walk will pay any price for a miracle, and a man who is afraid to die will buy a ticket to heaven from anyone holding a loud enough microphone. He stalks the stage like a hungry leopard, his eyes scanning the crowd for the weakest in the flock, those whose wallets are flung wide because their hearts are utterly broken. And he feeds on the hope that defies logic, the kind of hope that thrives only in the dark. Every monster has an evolution and a point where the hunt becomes efficient. So Popoff began his climb in the 1970s, realizing that the flickering television screen was the perfect lens to magnify his deception. He didn't just preach, he performed a grand electronic theatre, calling out names and house addresses and the secret intimate illnesses of total strangers in the crowd until the herd was mesmerized. They truly believed they were witnessing God's knowledge descending upon the stage, but God apparently operates on the 39.17 megahertz band. In the shadows, hidden from view, his mate Elizabeth was feverishly reading information from prayer cards the audience had filled out only moments before. She was the brain, and he was merely the loud, colourful mouth, a divine connection powered by a 9-volt battery and a predatory instinct. Elizabeth sat in a trailer outside the tent or in a secluded room backstage with a transmitter and a stack of index cards. She would whisper names and medical conditions into the microphone, and Peter would receive them through a tiny translucent receiver tucked deep inside his ear canal. To the audience, it looked like supernatural insight. But to those with a radio scanner, it was nothing more than a domestic broadcast of fraud that turned faith into a commodity for the hungry scavenger. Observe the physical mechanics of the strike, because Peter Popoff would strike the forehead of a believer with the force of a predator's paw, and they would fall not from the overwhelming power of the spirit, but from the sheer weight of a well-rehearsed psychological blow. This is known as being slain in the spirit. But in the biological sense, it is a state of induced shock where the crowd roars and the music swells and the rational mind is paralyzed by the spectacle. He commanded the lame to walk carefully, selecting individuals who were already mobile but had been placed in wheelchairs by his own assistants for the sake of the miracle. This is a common tactic in the Predator's Handbook, where the environment is staged to ensure the success of the hunt. It is a fascinating display of symbiotic corruption where the predator and the prey perform a choreographed dance of total delusion while his bank account grew fat on the fear of the sick. At the height of this harvest, Popoff was collecting over $4 million a month, which is a staggering tribute from a flock that had nothing left to give but their faith. He bought houses and luxury cars and fine jewellery, all while telling the poor that their financial misery was a result of their lack of faith. But every predator eventually meets a rival alpha, and in 1986 a different kind of hunter entered the territory named James Randi. Randi was a magician who knew every trick in the book, and he did not carry a halo, he carried a radio scanner. He didn't look for demons or angels, he looked for electronic signals cutting through the air. While the showman was on stage claiming to hear the voice of the Almighty, Randi was in the wings with the high-powered scanner. What they heard was not the voice of God, but the voice of Elizabeth Popoff, reminding her husband to mention the woman in the green dress, or the man with the bad hip. "Hello, Petey," she would say, "can you hear me?" And Petey would repeat her words as if they were falling from the heavens to the gasps of the unsuspecting crowd. The divine revelation was exposed for what it was, which is a cheap electronic parlor trick, and the broadcast on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson was a public evisceration. The sound of Elizabeth's voice feeding Peter the names of the sick became the death knell for his ministry. Popoff was forced into the cold reality of bankruptcy in 1987, and the herd dispersed, leaving the scavenger with nothing but an empty vault to pick. But this species is remarkably resilient to shame. It is a creature that can survive in the most hostile environments. It retreated into the deep undergrowth, waiting for the memory of the flock to fade for over a decade, shedding its old skin and preparing for a new digital environment. By the late 90s, the predator had re-emerged stronger and more cynical than before, because he realized that the herd has a very short memory when they are thirsty for hope. He traded the sweaty revival tent for the polished infomercial reaching millions from the safety of a television studio. The prey was now global and accessible through a cable connection and a credit card number. He began to market Miracle Spring Water, which is a small plastic pouch of ordinary liquid sold as a literal conduit for financial blessing. He tells the prey to sleep with the water and pray over it, and then, most importantly, to send him a seed faith offering. This is the heart of the modern scam, where the predator promises a return on investment that no bank could ever match. It is a masterpiece of psychological trapping, promising that a small $20 gift will unlock a $1,000 miracle in a lottery where the house always wins, and the house is a multi-million-dollar estate in California. Observe the scale of the operation today, where the house is a palace, and he even sends out holy debt-cancelling sand and miracle manna to those buried in crippling interest rates. He sends letters that look like official government documents or urgent telegrams filled with promises of wealth and health, if only the recipient will send a small donation. The letters are carefully crafted to exploit the loneliness and the desperation of the elderly and the poor. The irony is thick enough to choke on with the poor, giving their last remaining coins to a man who lives in a palace built entirely on their tears. Think about the sheer audacity required to sell sand to a man drowning in debt, because it is a level of predatory instinct that defies conventional morality. Popoff does not feel guilt, since a leopard does not feel guilt for the gazelle, and he only feels the drive to continue the harvest, to keep the machine running at all costs as a ghost in the machine, feeding on the digital signals of despair. He has expanded his reach into the world of social media and online streaming, using the same old tricks with new technology. He uses fake testimonials and staged videos to convince a new generation of victims that he has the power to change their lives. Whether it is a hedge fund in New York or a miracle worker in a tent, the mechanics of the harvest remain the same. The predator adapts and the camouflage changes, but the hunger remains constant. Popoff is still out there today, lurking in the late-night airwaves, a ghost in the machine, feeding on the desperate. And he is a reminder that in the urban ecosystem there is no predator more dangerous than the one who speaks in the name of the divine, while his hands are buried deep in your pockets. Look closely, and you will see him waiting and watching and listening to the frequency of your fear. You have been watching the Urban Predator Files. Stay tuned for our next dive to a species of greed. You are watching Sweetlies Hard Cash. Subscribe now, because while you watch this, the predator is already shedding its skin, recalibrating its signal, and looking for its next meal. It might just be looking at you.